One of the scariest places a person can go, especially when they've lived the fast life, they've partied, they've done drugs, they've been a gangster, and things do not end up well for them, is in a skilled nursing facility. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones, and I spent several years working in a skilled nursing slash hospice slash rehabilitation facility. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is, like, when I went in my first day, I felt like this place is like the land of the forgotten, because the first thing that you notice is that a lot of people who've you know been in very unfortunate circumstances, they're sort of in these wheelchairs, they're sort of left in these helmets, they're in these chairs, they're drooling and things like that, but they're kind of alone, so they're not typically surrounded by family. And it's like there's like a very pungent smell, particularly if you work in low income or facilities where the patients are low income. So it's basically like they only have Medi-Cal or something like that, because I think there is a different income. There's facilities that are within different income brackets, and they're all very different. But those that are low income particularly can be very traumatizing for the average person who's never been in one of those places. And the one thing that I've noticed, and I've worked with, when I worked in a facility, there were a lot of young men there, and it's in a suburb of Oakland, California. So there were a lot of young African American and Hispanic Latino men there who had basically lived a very fast life. And when I say young, I'm talking about people 18, 20, and these are young men they're never going to get out of that place. They're never going to walk again. They're never going to be in a place where they're high functioning. So a lot of them, they've had some pretty severe traumatic brain injuries, or they've become paraplegic or quadriplegic. There's been some people that I worked with that had, like locked in syndrome and things like that. And one of the things that I've noticed about those facilities, outside of the fact that a lot of people, these young people, are forgotten, meaning that their families just sort of leave them there, and they don't really, once they're there, they don't necessarily come back in a lot of cases. But the other thing that, I notice in a lot of these facilities is, depression and substance abuse is very rampant in places like this. And other things that happen, and you guys have probably heard about stuff like this on the news, but sex offenses still take place in skilled nursing facilities. So in places like where people are kept alive, like they're in a coma and they're kept alive, or either again, like they have locked in syndrome or things like that where they can't get up and go. There are still sex offenses that take place at facilities, and sometimes people just pop up. They're like 9 months pregnant. You don't really know until they pop up. But there's a lot of the residents and things like that. Substance abuse is very rampant. But also, sexual activity, and sometimes it's wanted versus not wanted in a lot of cases. And so there's a lot of, you just have to sort of mediate that and basically protect clients as best as you can when you work there. But there's a lot of really sad cases of people that just go downhill, when they realize that, hey, fun time is over. I can't break the law. I can't do drugs. I can't do all of the things that I want to do. And they'll still try to do it somewhat, even when they're in a facility. And a lot of times it's because they're down and out. They don't really have anybody else. No one's going to really come and check on them, take them home, or anything like that. And so that's going to be their future. And for a lot of 18, 19, 20 plus on, that is a very dim future that a lot of people that a lot of people have to look forward to. And so, there were those types of things, but also one of the other types of patients that I worked with were HIV patients, so people who live the fast life in terms of drugs and sexual activity, and worked with a lot of HIV patients, and when HIV turns into AIDS and it has that decline, visiting people that are kind of going through hospice, that can definitely be rough, particularly if people have multiple strains of HIV. So you can get infected with HIV more than once, which I didn't know that prior to working there. But yeah, um, just a lot of different things to think about. So just always be sure to take care of your health. It's also a good reason why, if you can, to have a good support system around you, have a good community around you. And anything that comes fast and easy and is always a high roller lifestyle usually isn't good, because it's as fast as you get it, people typically come crashing down. And going to a facility like that isn't good. And you can probably, if you don't want to take my word for it, you can always sign up to become a visitor or do group activities and things like that at places like that, because they desperately need people to come and volunteer and like entertain guests and things like that, because no one really shows up, because it can be um, very sad. It can be very shocking. It can be very shocking to the system if you've never seen that before. And when I was an intern, part of my work was just even like orienting other interns, because it was also very hard for them to come in and see that every day. And a lot of people get very frightened by that, get very triggered by that. Even the healthy, normal person may even feel like they want to have a stiff drink after walking into a place like that. It can be very hard, to see that.